Welcome back to KTN Sunrise Live. We're glad you're still with us. As promised, we're talking about the gender issue, the gender agenda, or the gender debate, whichever way you want to call it. It's something that's been in the news for the past month now, and lots of politicians are coming out, everyone putting an opinion about what they think should be happening. And to break it down for us, I'm joined in studio this morning by Ms. Winnie Lichuma. She's the chairperson for the National Gender and Equality Commission. Thank you for joining us. And Catherine Muma, who's a human rights lawyer, but also part of the Commission for the Implementation of the Constitution.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. All right, so Winnie, let's just begin with you, and if you can explain to us in the most simplistic terms possible what the gender rule is, because it's been in the media, but I don't think people really understand what it is.
Thank you, Edith. We are looking at this two-third gender principle. And the two-third gender principle is that principle that intends to bring the gender parity and gender equity in representation. Currently, we are looking at the political representation. And the Constitution does provide that not more than two-thirds of either elective or appointive appointments in public office shall be held by either gender. So clearly, no gender can be more than two-thirds. That is the principle. So when we're looking at the aspects of political representation, we find there's a missing link. The article that provides for the composition of the National Assembly and that provides for the provision of the Senate lacks a mechanism on how we get to realize this two-third gender principle, because it provides for the numbers.
Right.
290 from the constituencies, 47 from the counties, women representatives, and then the 12 special seats, giving us the number of 349. If you go by a third of 349 by either gender, it gives you about 117 seats. So that means the least gender must have in the National Assembly is 117. Now, looking at the women, we have the 47 seats that are set aside. Then, out of the 12 seats, they will go to either gender. So we have 6 seats. So that gives you 53 seats set aside, guaranteed for the female gender.
Right.
That falls short of 64 seats to give us 117. And therefore, if we do not provide for a mechanism, that means we'll go to the polls. We'll have, if 0 women are elected from the constituency, we'll have,
We hope not.
we'll have 53 women in the House, less 64, to give us a third that the principle does require.
All right. Catherine, the Constitution is obviously very clear on this, but the suggestions that are being put out there seem to be extremely drastic. There's talk of, eliminating this whole, the 80 new constituencies altogether, talk of 47 new elective female representatives. Is this even an option? Is it even possible?
In my view, it is not an option. Those who are suggesting that there are those who suggested that we even go to the referendum to remove the principle of equality in the Constitution.
Yeah.
To me, that is unthinkable. This Constitution is about equity and equality. That is the strongest principle of this Constitution, whether it is by regional balance, whether it is by gender, whether it is by including persons with a disability or regions that are marginalized. That is the strongest principle. And it has been repeated in Article 27. It is repeated in Article 81 on the principles of elections. And I think the Parliament must do what is responsible. If the Kenyans intended that to be there, created a constitutional quota, and in Article 177 even provided the mechanism in the bill to try and ensure that at the county assembly, if we don't have the required gender quotas, then the deficit will be nominated. That provision is there in 177. And what Cabinet is asking is that we lift that provision in Article 177 and bring it within to apply to the National Assembly and to the Senate. And I am puzzled, that we are now arguing about going back to the people to renege on a principle that we have been fighting over 40 years to ensure that inclusion.
But then there's a school of thought which is saying that, look, the members of parliament obviously did not go through the constitution well enough, which is why they passed something which they're now having a problem with. And there's also another school of thought which says that even if the constitution is taken as is, there is no way Kenyans are going to elect 64 women. What's your take on this? And if you were to give a solution, what would it be?
That is true. Because of the culture that we have, the socio-cultural upbringing of the Kenyan society, we have been brought up to exclude women. We have been brought up to exclude persons with disabilities. We have been brought up to exclude regions that do not have as large numbers. That is why we put it in the constitution, that for these people to be included, we must create a particular principle that will enable that they are also included in this society. And in my view, we should all be celebrating this principle and working towards achieving it, and not coming up with all manner of excuses. It is too expensive. Of course, democracy is expensive. Devolution is going to be expensive. But we opted for it because we knew the centralized system has benefited just a few. So we want to say, okay, for those who don't want to share, they feel, let us go back to just allowing the strong in society to live at the expense of those ones that we've marginalized. I think we should all do what is right. By the way, there are some principles which we must implement because they are right, not because we are going to get the numbers for them. We must implement it because it is right.
All right. Winnie, where does your commission stand on this? Because I haven't had anyone from NGEC come out and say this is our stand and this is what we are advocating for.
Oh, Edith, I'm totally surprised. I have been on media every day. I have written in the paper. The National Gender and Equality Commission stands for equality. And we're talking about equality of all the special category groups. We have the women, we have the youth, we have persons with disability, we have the marginalized group, we have the elderly. And when we look at the Constitution, the Commission's stand is that the Parliament has no choice but to give in to the amendment that is before the House. We are behind the amendment. And what we are saying, the Amendment Bill 2011 has been with Parliament for all this time.
Right.
We cannot have any other proposal, Edith, that gets us going back for 90 days, because now to amend the Constitution, and the suggestions coming out are healthy, they're very good, but unfortunately, time is not on our side.
Right.
Time is not on our side, because the Constitution amendment is very clear that you need to go for the 90 days public participation. The bill before the House has gone through that process. And Edith, we are counting days to the election date. Anything right now that proposes to make any amendment to the Constitution must go back to Wananchi for the 90 days. We do not have that time. We are lacking the mechanism. And as Catherine has said, the mechanism may have been missed by omission, by mistake, or clearly somebody did not see the hurdle that was ahead of us.
Okay.
Now, for us, the problem is, if we don't get the amendment, and we don't get the equity by getting in a third of women representation in the next parliament, be it at the Senate, be it at the National Assembly, that house will be illegitimate, it will be unconstitutional, they will not be able to transact any business.
All right.
So we are saying is, right now we dilly-dallying, but we have the opportunity to make the amendment so that we amend our ways before we go to the poll. Because we are getting to a situation whereby IBC will have given us results, and results, if we do not really change our attitude to voting women, I don't see us realizing the third. For example, right now in the current House, women representation is only at 9.6. A shame for Kenya, because clearly when you compare with the other countries in the region,
Right.
Rwanda is at 56.6, Uganda is almost at 36,
And
Tanzania
I think this is the
is
best
at
female.
35.
This is the best female representation we've had.
Of course, yes.
Right?
Of course, yes. And since we have shown from independence that we are not appreciating women as political leaders, as Kenyans, we have not really shown that we can vote in women. And we know we have good women candidates who can come to parliament and deliver.
All right.
On the discussion.
Let me actually jump in there and go to Catherine, and I'm talking to you now as a human rights lawyer and also as a woman. Do you think women are ready? If they're told, okay, here is the opportunity, go for it. Will women campaign? Are we going to vote them in because they are qualified or because they're simply women and we have to follow the Constitution?
One, they must be voted in because they're qualified. And in my view, there is enough Kenyan women who are qualified to sit in parliament and do a great job. But we have all been socialized not to be able to compete. And the Kenyan electoral environment is so hostile to the woman, is so violent even in the new dispensation, that it keeps off women. And that's why the affirmative action measure was intended to actually handhold a few women, give them the courage to move on. Right now, I believe Rachel Shebesh, Millie Odhiambo, anybody in parliament is now able to take on men on an equal basis.
Right.
So what we are saying, and this bill is about nominating only the deficit. The Kenyans are given the first chance. Elect them. If you don't elect, we nominate the deficit. The expectation would be, if Catherine is nominated through political party X this time round, she gets in there, she learns the ropes, and she should cede the space next time round, be able to take on somebody in Nyakach constituency, and perhaps possibly come in. And once she comes in, that is one space won by women. It means we reduce the number of spaces we have to nominate. So it is my expectation that by and large, the Kenyan society will become comfortable with knowing that a woman can be a good leader. But it is not going to happen immediately. And that's why affirmative action, by the way, affirmative action is a temporary measure that is supposed to give that opportunity for hand-holding and empowering the women or whatever other interest group that is underrepresented. And after a period of time, we expect now the society will have been socialized to accept that women can lead, to accept that persons with disability are people, to accept that youth can be in leadership, to accept that workers can be part of decision-making processes in this country.
All right.
Yes.
But then let's paint a scenario here of what happens if what we're envisioning, what we're talking about right now doesn't come to fruition. What happens then? As the National Gender and Equality Commission, what do you do next? Because you will have a parliament which, as you rightly said, will be unconstitutional. Then what?
Oh, clearly, for me, let me go back and say, what we are saying is, if the Kenyans are hearing us and we are saying women will present themselves, where they do qualify, please vote them in. If we vote in, for example, at 10%...
Do you think Kenyans are ready to vote in women?
I think so. I think so. Kenyans, we really need to change our mindset. And for example, the Rift Valley region, for example, in the last house, they gave us quite a number of women. A big number is from Rift Valley. If the Rift Valley with their rigid culture would come out and elect women, I believe there's something we can borrow from it. So if Kenyans are to vote in women, for example, at 10%, Edith, we only will be talking of nomination for 35 women at 10%. If they give us 0, then we are talking about 64. But if Kenyans would vote in women at 20%, we are talking about nominations that is less than 10. And when I hear the discussions about the big wage bill, my question is, we will run in a crisis that will get IBC rethinking going back to the vote. How much will we spend as a country? Yet, if you then vote 0 women, you nominate 64, I believe you can pay 64. The cost of paying the 64 is far less than having to get into a crisis that gets us going back to the poll. Because clearly, the law is not clear. We don't get the third. What happens? As a lawyer, it will be unconstitutional. What we'll do next, we will be seeking the intervention of the court to declare that house unconstitutional. And once it is declared unconstitutional, I don't think it will be sworn in. I don't think so.
So let me get this right.
Yes.
You're saying that we should vote in as many women as we can and then top up that number with nominations later.
Yes.
All right.
And that's what the bill
is
proposing, actually.
All right.
Yes.
But do you think, even as we're being completely optimistic, that we will be able to elect all 64 and not having to nominate any?
I personally don't think it will happen in the first time because of the social and the cultural environment. In fact, by the way, the creation of 47 seats is already working. The men are already using it against women, which I hope Kibunja is watching, and they should be disqualified for actually distorting a provision of the Constitution to the disadvantage of women.
Right.
Now, we will not, in the first round, we may not be able to elect the 10%. But I believe we are able to progressively be cultured to a level where we can appoint even up to 20%. And if we appoint 20%, we will be nominating less than 10 women if we adopt this bill. But the suggestion that have been put there to create another 47 safe seats, in my view, is not the way to handhold women. If you create another safe seats, you are actually getting women out of competitive politics. You would rather do with the 47 and then culture them to get strong, to join the mud, if you want to call it, and be able to compete. And I believe they will be able to compete in future.
All right. This is obviously a huge topic which we will not be able to go through today. But even in the little that we're talking about, I've had discussions with a lot of people, women and men alike, on the same, and the same thing keeps coming up, which is that politics is very dirty and women really cannot dirty their hands with this. Are you conducting maybe sensitization exercises? Are you saying to the women, look, you are able to, and this is how you do it?
Yes, we've just begun that. We're going around, the women are being prepared. We have several government bodies doing this. We have civil society organizations that are coming out. We are sensitizing, we are preparing even the candidates, the aspirants. We have teams that are preparing them to begin to understand this mud, as Catherine says, they want to get in. What exactly does it involve? So clearly, and for me, I want to support Catherine. A few of the women we have had in this current house have done very well. And therefore, we have examples to learn from. We have women in parliament in Rwanda, in Malawi, in Uganda. South Africa is at 45%. We will have the learning to do. We'll have the learning to do. And for me, I think I'm saying give women, give persons with disability, because for disability, 5% progressively. Parties need to begin to realize that we have the Constitution, it is supreme, is above all of us, and we just need to implement it. For me, I would not worry about dirtiness of the politics or what women will gain or not. Give them the chance, they qualify, and let's then tame them while they're there. We will mold them, they will learn, and for me, I think they will make wonderful leaders.
All right.
Edith, I want to use the space to actually call on the women. Stop sitting in the studio. Go out there. and if you read Article 90, by the way, even for women who will be nominated, it's no longer on a silver platter. You have to fight for it.
Right.
So, number one, by 20th October this month, if you intend to benefit from a nomination from a party, please join a political party. Person with disability, woman, youth, don't sit on the side and hope that your connection to a party leader is what will get you in. It is no longer the way.
Right.
You must
Work for it. Yes.
Wear your boots. Get in there. Get into the political party. Do some good work for that political party so that the political party can actually see that you're a potential. No, compete with others within that political party so that you're up the list of the party list. And thereafter, once you're on the party list, campaign for your political party so that it can get enough seats, because your nomination is dependent on how many seats the political party actually gains in the next election. So it is no longer something that I'm connected, I'm a relative. It is no longer the way. You must actually go out there, and women should stop imagining wanting to be in parliament and yet wanting to keep off. In my view, get out there and
get your hands dirty.
So hopefully, Edith, we will see you soon.
And clearly, for the 47 seats, it's not a silver platter. Some counties are quite big. Some counties have like 9 constituencies, for example, Kakamega.
Right.
So a woman who wants to come in on the 47 as a rep, you need to campaign in all the constituencies. The 9 constituencies. Right. It is not easy. You need support of your political party. So for me, the call for the women is, where are you? I hear talks about women are not there. Women are there. But for men, can they stop the propaganda that women only have the 47 seats? From the law, women can compete in constituencies, can compete for governorship, can compete for senatorship. We have the affirmative action only giving them the 47 and 16 seats in the Senate, clearly for us to get to that way of the quota system. But otherwise, nothing bars them from running for the constituency level, for the governorship, for the senatorship. My call for the women is, come out, join the parties, Go for it. It is there. It will just not be brought to you on a silver platter. You must work for it. Work for your party. Work for yourself.
All right.
And you'll be there.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. The Constitution is very black and white, but it's become a very intricate debate, one that, as mentioned, we cannot be able to tackle in just one sitting. But the discussion is still going. I'm sure you'll be able to see it in the media, but you're armed with that much more information thanks to the ladies who joined us this morning in the studio. Thank you so much for your company. And for your company at home as well, I now hand you over to Aaron Ocheng. He's going to be going through Succession 2013. This morning, he'll be dealing with the aspirants for the governorship position in Nakuru. Do stay tuned.
A very good morning to you wherever you are tuned in from. This is the 3rd day of October 2012. And I'm joined in the studio with two gentlemen, Honorable Lee Kinyanjui, the Member of Parliament for Nakuru Town, on a PNU ticket, but he's associating himself with the National Alliance Party, TNA. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Kinyanjui. Thank you. And also here, a very famous Kenyan, Honorable John Mutudho, Member of Parliament for Naivasha, a KANU Member of Parliament, now associating himself with TNA also. Both gentlemen are vying for the Nakuru governorship seat on a TNA ticket. They are here to engage us, and I'm also going to engage them on discussions to see who really fits the bill to be the next governor of Nakuru, the first governor of Nakuru for that matter. Now, maybe we could start with Honorable Lee Kinyanjui. You are a very young Member of Parliament. You entered Parliament at 40. Right now you 35. At 35, you are now 40 years old. Yeah. I would put you in that bracket that they're saying the young Turks. I would say so. Do you think that would play as an advantage to you to be the mayor, the next governor of Nakuru, or a disadvantage?
Thank you. I think in one way, age by itself is not the only thing, but definitely a critical thing. And I think it also comes at a time when a greater number of young people are looking for the opportunity to be able to serve their country. And unfortunately, what we have seen in the past is that all the critical decisions regarding the management of the country at all levels, from basically the lowest levels and all the way up, has been done by a different age set. So I think it will be important. But I think critically so is the fact that 65% of the voters will essentially be within that age group. And essentially they would also be looking for people who will be able to articulate those issues. But also in terms of experience, there are some people who would also want to look at, when you're young, you're inexperienced. Of course, that is neither true, because there is nobody's born with experience. This experience comes with time. So I believe it depends on how we're able to play it, but the response we've been able to get so far has been very impressive, and I believe if we're able to get our communication right together with the other segments of the voters, it will essentially be very, very, very important. But also you may want to remember that when you look at Nakuru, and essentially because we have a bit of section that is essentially urban, we have issues of unemployment, which is largely a youth issue, and things also to do with insecurity that have greatly affected the young people. And a lot of these issues sometimes remain unresolved. So therefore, the youth are looking for people who will be able to articulate and also resolve their issues along those lines.
Okay. Honorable Mutudho, you've been a Member of Parliament for Naivasha.
Yes,
now you've decided that you want to climb the ladder up to be the governor of Nakuru.
Yeah.
What makes you think that you're the right person to be the governor of Nakuru?
First of all, is that if you followed John Mutudho's track, first and foremost, son of a squatter. Many people don't know that. We grew up in those former White Islands and through this expansive Nakuru County now. The youth are most disadvantaged in Nakuru, if you look at it that way. And what my colleague may have omitted to say is that one of the biggest misfortune is to come from Nakuru. Like, for instance, the last cabinet minister was 1966, appointed 1963, Ochieng Oneko, and fired 1966. After that, not a single one. Although we have 1.6 million people, we do turn around about 800,000 to 1 million votes. No one has found it fit. We have universities, we have professors, we have everybody. Places like Naivasha, you look at the senior most civil servant, is actually an assistant chief. The disadvantage that our youth has been put through is immense. So you need a governor who is going to cultivate the youth to make homegrown solution in terms of productivity so that they can now come on and catch up with the rest of the world. Because as you know it, and as we know it now, if you do not have those cabinet ministers sitting and they are pro-you, then you will not have any one of your own to be an ambassador, you will not have any one of your own to be a CEO in any big establishment. You will sit there. In fact, it's a shock that even places like Peregrine Board of Kenya, which is owned 100% by farmers, we still have people from the government masquerading to be the owners, and then they come over. They come over and post in the executives. The last set of executives disappeared with over 3 billion shillings for the farmers. Now there's another set of executives who now want to come and sell off even the little assets we have. So you really need somebody to come over there and try to have a homegrown solution for Nakuru. Let them work very hard like they do always. Appreciate their skills and then go to full production.
Okay. Honorable Lee Kinyanjui, you are the Assistant Minister for Roads. And you in government, I would say so. You also, this is your first time to be Member of Parliament.
Yes.
Do you think you have a good track record that people would say, Honorable Lee Kinyanjui did this within 5 years? Suppose we're giving another 5 years as a governor of Nakuru. I think he will make sure that certain things are done in the right way. What would you say you've done in the last 5 years as a Member of Parliament and also as an Assistant Minister?
Thank you. I believe that your question is very important because you must have proved that you're capable on small things before you can be able to aspire for other greater things. And I believe, having served in Nakuru for 5 years, we probably should be able to come up with a proper profile of what we've been able to do. But maybe also before we get to that, of course, more of a word of caution to Kenyans that as we get into the new counties, the opportunity for us to start right won't always be there. And therefore, the cost of starting wrong, then halfway trying to correct things, the rest of the country will have taken off. And therefore, my plea to Kenyans, to the young people, and to basically ordinary Kenyans is that it will be very important the decisions that are made this particular time appreciate the role of the governor, because again we've been saying that civic education has not been very well entrenched, and therefore even as we move out there, as we talk to people, the first thing we're seeing is that they have no idea what the role of a governor is, or a senator for that matter, and all the others. So essentially what will be happening is that as they make a decision as to who will be their governor, a lot of them will be making it from a point of ignorance. So therefore we would think that the issue of civic education will be critical. But back to your question, I wish to say that I got to Nakuru at a time when Nakuru town had gotten the notorious description as a hotbed of politics. And the only thing you heard about Nakuru was when there are big political rallies and all those other things. And many will recall that the first president had a very good place for Nakuru in his heart, and a lot of time he spent it there. So was it also for the second president, and moving on. So Nakuru has really been the hotbed of Kenyan politics. But despite that importance in the Kenya's political arena, we have seen very little in the way of development to justify that importance. As he says, politically, we have not seen any serious political appointments from that area. But it became a political sort of experiment. If you want to try out anything, if it's going to work, you go and say it in Nakuru, do it in Nakuru, and that kind of thing. But for the ordinary people, the roads, the schools, and the hospitals, and the stadiums remained just as they were. And really very little happened. And for that, as we sought to be elected in 2007, our platform was we must change our politics